I love working with tilapia because of its ability to absorb flavors really well, not forgetting that it's readily available and affordable in the Kenyan market. There are so many ways of preparing it. You can bake it, grill it over charcoal, deep fry it, or even stew it. Today I want to share with you one of the ways that I go about preparing my whole tilapia fish stew. These are the ingredients that I used. So let me show you how I prep my tilapia. I make incisions that go all the way to the bone on both sides of my tilapia, and this is because I want to infuse as much flavor as possible into the tilapia. Now if you don't make these incisions, you'll find that your tilapia will not have as much flavor because its skin will act as a barrier to your flavors, because they won't be able to penetrate as effectively as they would have if there were incisions. So as you can see right here, those incisions are going all the way to the bone. So next I dusted my tilapia with a light coating of plain wheat flour. I didn't season the wheat flour, it's just plain. And there are two reasons why I do this. First, because I'm going to sear the fish, and the wheat flour is going to help in the formation of a nice brown crust, which will add layers of flavor. And the second reason is, later on as I will be simmering the fish, the flour will help in thickening of my stew. And also as part of my preparation, I sprinkled salt in the incisions that I had made. And so next I added sunflower oil to my sufuria, swirled it, made sure that the entire sufuria base was covered, and once the sunflower oil came to temperature, I placed my tilapia in the sufuria and left it to sear until it became a nice brown color without burning, and I didn't let the tilapia cook through. This took about, I think, 5 minutes or so on medium heat, and then I turned it over and seared the second side. As you can see, my tilapia was slightly larger than my sufuria. I didn't anticipate this. The tails broke off, but that was neither here nor there. It didn't really bother me, though I wish the tails hadn't broken off. It happened and there's nothing I could do about it. So as the first tilapia was searing on the second side, I placed my second tilapia into the sufuria so that they would both sear simultaneously, saving me some bit of time. And so once I was satisfied that the first tilapia had seared to my liking on both sides, I removed it, and this is how it looked. You can see the way it just browned nicely. Remember what I said, it's not cooked through, it will cook later on. And so I carried on with the second tilapia until both sides were seared to my satisfaction and removed it. Next, I cooked my onions in the same oil that I used to sear my tilapia, because there is so much flavor that was in the sufuria at this point. All those browned bits that you're seeing there, they are all tilapia goodness and flavor. So I cooked my onions for about 5 minutes until they just softened and turned translucent. I didn't let them acquire any color. Then I added my ginger and garlic, cooked them off for about 2 minutes or so until they just started releasing the aroma, and that's when I came and added my tomato paste, and I cooked my tomato paste for about 2 minutes or so before adding anything else, just to get rid of that very bitter taste or the tartness that comes from using tomato paste. And once I was satisfied that it was cooked properly, I added my green chilies. I didn't chop my green chilies, as you can see, I just slit them lengthwise just to infuse their flavor and to reduce the heat that was going to result from chopping them. And then I added garam masala. Now, this is the thing. My first choice here would have been curry powder. But since I didn't have curry powder, and I mean, it's not the end of cooking if you don't have one ingredient in your kitchen. You can always substitute and use whatever you have at hand. This was followed by me adding my tomatoes that I had chopped, stirred them in really well, made sure that the contents were well mixed. Then I added salt to taste. Cracked some black pepper and then mixed it in as well. And then lowered the heat to a very low simmer for the tomatoes to soften and break down completely. So this took about 5 minutes, and as you can see, they had really broken down nicely. So at this point, it's when I added water. So take note of the way I'm adding my water. I did this bit by bit. And the reason why I did this is because there's a certain consistency I was looking for in my stew. I didn't want it too thick or too thin. So I would stir everything together, check for the thickness, then add again until I was satisfied finally with the consistency that I had. So at this point, I covered and allowed the stew to come to a simmer, and immediately I uncovered it, stirred just to make sure that I was still okay with that consistency, and I found that I was quite happy with it. So at this point, I tasted for seasoning, salt and all, but then I found that the stew was on the tart side because of the tomato paste. So I added 2 tablespoons of honey. You can add whichever sweetener that you want. You can add sugar, jaggery, whatever. The aim is to cut through that tartness that results from using the tomato paste and the tomatoes. And then I proceeded to scoop out half of my stew from the sufuria. Made sure that everything was well spread out, no part was left uncovered. And then I came and placed my tilapia very gently into the sufuria. And then I took the stew that I had scooped out and spread it on top of the tilapia. So there are 2 reasons why I did this. Number 1, this tilapia fish is very fragile as it is right now. If you try to turn it, it's going to end up breaking, and you're going to serve people pieces of tilapia stew while you had promised them that you're going to serve them whole tilapia. And secondly, I wanted the tilapia to absorb the flavors from the stew, both from the bottom and the top. So once I was satisfied that my tilapia was well covered with the stew, I covered my sufuria, I reduced the heat to a very low simmer, and left the tilapia to simmer for about 25 to 30 minutes until it really softened and it was almost falling off the bone. So here is my tilapia after about 30 minutes of simmering. So at this point, I added my colored hohos or bell peppers together with the spring onions, spread them out evenly over both the tilapias, and then covered and left to simmer for about 2 minutes just to soften the bell peppers, but not let them cook through because I wanted that crunch to still be there. And then I added my dhania or coriander, left it to simmer for about 30 seconds, and then I served. So once I served, I squeezed fresh lemon juice on top of my tilapia. I mean, fish and lemon is like a match made in heaven. And this is how my tilapia looked at the end of it all. I garnished it with some extra colored hohos and dania. I just love the way the colored hohos add so much pop of color that contrasts with the green. The stew was quite substantial without being too thin. It's still thick and has so much flavor in it. And let me show you how the inside looks. It was still very moist and very soft. So in Kenya, the most common accompaniment to fish is ugali, but if you want, you can have it with mukimo, rice, chapati. Really, it's up to you. So I hope you enjoyed this video and that your new year 2016 started off well for all of you. Please stay tuned, and if you're not subscribed, please do so, because Jikoni Magic has got a lot in store for you this year in as far as Kenyan recipes go. Keep it Jikoni Magic. Goodbye.